Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? I am Scott. Bo is down there. I don't know where the co-pilot is. They must have bailed out a long time ago. Today is the 4th day of May, 2022. It is now about 7:20 in the morning. Good morning to you all. I hope you are well. I'm doing okay. Today I'm going to talk about something that I rarely talk about, if ever, over the entire course of my website and my writing and my video work, and that is abortion and abortion rights. And of course, I have to do that because the Dobson versus Jackson Women's Health Organization ruling came out. The opinion came out and was leaked yesterday, a day before yesterday, and then it was published by Politico yesterday. This is kind of a big deal. It doesn't happen very often. And typically when it does, it has in the past, the reason being they wanted to put pressure on justices because it is rare, but once an opinion is filed or once an opinion is written, justices can, up until the moment it is released, make a decision, make a change. And some believe that this has been done to perhaps persuade one of the 5 Republican justices to change their vote. 5 Republican justices have voted in favor the affirmation of this, and 3 are opposing it, and those are the ones who are Democrats. However, Roberts, Chief Justice, has yet to make his decision, or he might write a separate opinion piece, separate from the ones the Democrats are writing, so that could end up being 5-4, and then if somebody were to switch of the 5, it could, of course, turn the decision altogether. That theoretically is the reason somebody has done this. The other reason to do this is quite simply distraction. Usually it's supposed to be released in about 2 months. However, right now is not good for the Biden administration. His numbers are way, way down, and they're announcing that they're going to give $7 billion a month to Ukraine to fight a useless fucking skirmish against fucking Russia, which they have no hope of winning, just so they can maintain it and keep it going and keep the fucking problems going here in the United States, keep the prices being jacked up artificially, making things much, much harder on the people here in the States, of course, killing Ukrainians, of course, causing issues with Russians, and of course, people in the European Union, all in order to destabilize Russia and destabilize Western countries in preparation for the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. All of that is culminating with jacked up food prices, food insecurity, to the point where the Biden administration has announced in September, late September, they're going to have a food insecurity summit. One hasn't been done in this country since 1969 under Nixon. That's how bad it is. But of course, they're not going to do jack shit about it. Nobody like Nancy Pelosi's running across the fucking pond to get over there and press the flesh with fucking President Shorty and show him that, here's the $7 billion a month you're going to get. Aren't you excited? How can I make my money off of this? They're doing that while, according to the president and his announcement, food insecurity in the United States is worse than it's been in 50 fucking years. And people can't fucking feed their kids. We'll do something about that later. Right now, we got to focus all our money on fucking Zelensky and the Nazis. Now, if anything requires a fucking distraction, I'd say that qualifies. However, Dobbs versus the Jackson Women's Organization is a real thing, and the ruling and the opinion is a real thing, and its leak is a real thing, so it deserves discussion. So let's do that. This is the article from Politico. Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. According to Justice Alito, we hold that Roe and Casey being the 1992 Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the 1992 case that affirmed the 1973 case, Roe versus Wade. He says, we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. Justice Alito, I believe Alito was put there by President George W. Bush. Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision according to initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, end quote. Here is the SCOTUS draft. Again, I will post links to all of this down below. And here is the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization SCOTUS blog page. You'll notice here that Justice Roberts has confirmed that this was the authentic draft opinion. And of course, they republished the draft opinion leak by Politico. Here. Politico has done an extensive write-up on this. Let's make it clear what this is about. First of all, this does not ban abortions in the United States. As Alito made reference to in this, or they made reference to in this, it's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Well, that happened in 1972, and then it happened but of course it happened with the Supreme Courts, who aren't elected. Now, Senator Sanders is running around saying, okay, let's just do this in the fucking House of Representatives in the legislature, and that'll fix that problem. Which of course could, but that's a different argument. What he's talking about here is taking it down to states' rights. Alito is a big states' rights guy, and he believes that this is overreach, always has been, and of course they agree with him. The other four agree with him that it's overreach by the Supreme Court, and that it should be a state-to-state decision like it was back prior to 1973. Now, I'm old, but I'm not that old. But I can tell you this. Having born and raised in Virginia, 1973, I was very young. However, as I grew up and grew older and went to high school, and you start to study history and sociology and understand, what was happening in the United States back in those days. It was difficult, but since Virginia's not what you call deep red state, there were, of course, stories from parents of children about young women having to go across the state lines in order to get abortions, if necessary. And they were usually shady operations, and sometimes people were injured by them. So let's make this clear. First of all, this is not about banning even the people who were already protesting. You've already got tons of people. I don't know if this is current or not. I don't think it is, but might be. Even down here in Florida, you've got protests going on already. This is not about banning all fucking abortions, even in the red states they're talking about. This is about sending it down to the states and letting the states decide. Of course, the red states will decide to limit access to abortions, whereas the blue states will not. Now, here's the difference. This is why some people will say, oh, it's about banning abortions. It's not about banning abortions. In fact, even in the red states, you will still be able to legally get abortions within the first trimester, according to both Politico and the write-up on this. And I think that is a very important distinction. Now, of course, we can talk about creeping authoritarianism on the woman's body, and where it starts now is not where it's going to end up. I get all of that. I do understand that. And this is not about my opinion. This is about, right now, what's going on in the news. However, just to make sure we understand each other, this decision is not banning abortions. It is sending it down to the states to decide, and even in the states that say we're going to limit access to certain abortions, they do not touch the right to a woman's abortion, a woman having an abortion, within the first 15 weeks of pregnancy, which of course is the first trimester, 3 months, roughly. Let's take a quick peek. It's all over the New York Times. I mean, it's all over the front page of the New York Times. These are actual legitimate fucking images from protests that have popped up immediately. Of course, someone always brings a coat hanger. That one's got a coat hanger. I would share some of that with you, but of course it's behind a paywall. This, of course, is The Atlantic. They have jumped into the fray immediately, and listen to how they do so. I want you to understand and to listen to this. This is April 4th today, 2022. I want to read a bit of this to you from The Atlantic. I don't know who, Jessica Bruder. One bright afternoon in early January on a beach in Southern California, a young woman spread what looked like a very strange picnic across an orange polka dot towel. A mason jar, a rubber stopper with 2 holes, a syringe without a needle, a coil of aquarium tubing, and a one-way valve, the plastic speculum. Several individually wrapped sterile cannulas, thin tubes designed to be inserted into the body, which resemble a long soda straws. And finally, a 3-dimensional scale model of the female reproductive system. Man, I wish I had one of those when I was fucking 13, 14. The 2 of us were sitting on the sand. The woman, who I'll call Ellie, had suggested we meet at the beach. She had recently recovered from COVID-19 and proposed the open-air setting for my safety. She also didn't want to risk revealing where she lives, and asked me to withhold her name because of concerns about harassment or violence from anti-abortion extremists. Ellie snuggled the rubber stopper into the mason jar. She snipped the aquarium tubing into a pair of foot-long segments and attached the valve to the syringe's plastic tip. In less than 10 minutes, Ellie had finished the project, a simple abortion device. It looked like a cross between an at-home beer brewing kit and a 7th grade science experiment. I'm not going to go on with this at this point. You understand where this is going. Yeah, let me show you how easy it is for a fucking idiotic nobody to make a goddamn at-home abortion kit. Fear, 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 fear. Of course, what she should have done was said she meant, Bubba with a fucking old fucking Hoover vacuum cleaner in a trailer park someplace. That's the fucking story she should have made up. But she didn't. She went with Ellie instead. The leak, which I believe was done from somewhere much... They're doing an investigation into the leak themselves. They have their own marshal, the marshal for the fucking Supreme Court, which I didn't know was a job that existed, but apparently it does. They offered the Justice Department and the glorious FBI to do one of their special investigations. Of course, they assumed they would be allowed to. The Supreme Court said no. Thanks. We've seen your kind of investigation with missing fucking security cameras and witnesses who were fucking beaten to death or killed while doing an investigation. We don't need that, thank you. We'll do our own. Appreciate it, wink. So that's what's going to happen. It's not unprecedented. There have been a few opinion leaks over the existence of the fucking Supreme Court. I don't know how many, but it is extremely rare. Again, I believe it's a distraction. I don't think there's anybody actually at the Supreme Court. Listen, if you're going to be an assistant or if you're going to work in the Supreme Court of the United States of America, there's extensive background checks, and those fuckers, that is their ticket, either to a long legal career or political career, or in big business. But either way, it's a step in the right direction for these people. I seriously doubt any of them are going to say, oh my God, they're going to fucking do abortions. I got to leak this. That would be ridiculous. In all likelihood, it came from fucking whoever the IP service is. Because big business owns everything you write. They read everything you fucking write. They listen to all your fucking phone calls, and they collect that data, and they use that data as they see fit. And if big business wants to distract from people getting pissed off because no one gives a shit about us starving right now, and they need us to starve right now so they can bring about the Great Reset. So they don't want people getting pissed off about that while Joe Biden's giving billions and billions and billions of dollars to some country across the fucking that nobody can find on a map. So I think it's entirely possible that it was just yanked out of that service. I mean, you can have all the fucking security in the world protecting your fucking server and your email where you communicate back and forth with opinions to make sure everybody's on board with it. You can have all the security in the world to keep everybody else from getting their hands on it, except for one entity, and that's the one that sends it. But they will never allow you to know that. They will never say, oh shit, it was somebody in fucking Verizon or whoever, Spectrum or whoever, because that would really undermine their fucking control. Anyway, aside from that, it's out. So, yes, it's a major setback to Roe v. Wade. And of course, the other one from 1992. Major setback for women's rights. And a major setback to the rights of the working class, the working poor, and the poor in this country. Somebody said on Twitter, because this is a thing that's been around and I've never bought into it, and I've never even, I don't address it. It's so fucking, this whole thing about abortions and Roe v. Wade being about controlling the number of people in the fucking world. Controlling about eugenics. The history aside, I mean, let's just stop for a second and break down what we're talking about here. somebody on Twitter said, well, look at that, what they do. They take the fucking clinics and they put the clinics all around the areas where a lot of black people are and poor people are, and that means they want to get rid of the black people and poor people. No, actually that just means you don't need a fucking clinic in Brentwood next to a country club, because those people up there can afford doctors. And they can afford to know that the doctors are going to keep their mouth shut, as opposed to going to a state-run clinic where it's going to be public knowledge and information is going to be out of hand. Listen, here's the way this works. I hope that's not showing up in the video. We'll see. Here's the way this works. People who have wealth and they have children who are on their way to Yale or Dartmouth or even UVA or University of Florida, some nice university someplace, and they are about to have start their decent career. They come up with an unexpected pregnancy. They're going to get an abortion. And it's going to be quiet. No one's going to know about it. It's going to be done by a friend of the family, a doctor, or a professional. They're not going to go to a fucking clinic someplace and have to walk past a bunch of screaming assholes. Everyone knows that. And I don't give a shit if it's a staunch, right-wing, conservative Christian who is out there with a picket sign. His daughter, on her way to Dartmouth, gets pregnant. You're damn well right she's going to get a fucking abortion. And they're going to keep it quiet. And he's going to be back out there with the picket sign a week afterwards, keeping other people from doing the same thing he just did. Access to decisions, choices like this. Oh, what's at stake? Or what's in question? Wealthy people and the children of the upper middle class and above, this is not going to have an effect on them. And I don't care what state they're in. It's not going to have an effect on this. This is going to have an effect entirely on the working poor, the lower middle class, and the very poor. And that's it. So that's an issue number one. And issue number two is this. These people who are out there screeching about, pro-life, as soon as that child is born, that child goes to fucking school at 5 years old, 6 years old, the family can't fucking work, can't find fucking money. Maybe the household is broken up. Maybe it's just the mother raising the kid or the grandmother raising the kid. Can't give the kid breakfast. The kid comes in hungry. They have a fucking school program to give the kid fucking breakfast so he can learn something or she can learn something and not be sitting there worried about a stomach growling. That same motherfucker who's talking about pro-life is out there with a picket sign saying, stop this socialism bullshit. Fuck that dude. You cared about the life when it was in the womb. You don't give a shit after it comes out. So, fuck that dude. Number three, let's talk about this. All these pro-life people who want to stop access to certain abortions for people of a certain economic fucking situation, they're the same ones who were screaming about the situation in inner cities like Chicago and all these places, and they go, well, I mean, the problem is the breaking up of the family. They broke up the family, which was done on purpose, by the way, by the government a long time ago. But you're breaking up of the family, and you got all these kids who are raised without a father, and the mother's out working, and they're on their own, and they're doing this shit. They're the same ones who screech about that, and that being the cause of all the black-on-black crime and all this crime taking place in the cities, because there's all of these people, young people, with nothing to do and no hope and no father figure around. And when it comes time to somebody wanting an abortion in their fucking red state, they're like, no, have that kid. Boom, as soon as the kid's fucking 18 years old and doing exactly what he's got nothing else to do because there's no fucking father. The family's broken up. They want him put in jail. Crack down on this. How the fuck does this happen? When you provide access to women's care like this, it has lasting effects. Lasting effects. And that's one of them. So you can't, I mean, it's a self-defeating fucking principle of theirs. Defend life. Life is all that's important until the life is actually a life and it's walking around, or it's fucking looking, or it's hungry at fucking school, or it needs a job but it can't get a job, and so it's roaming around doing stuff at fucking midnight in the... No, it's not a life. That's a problem. Well, it's a problem that could have been solved. But no, because life. And lastly, I'll leave you with one little tidbit to chew on, just to think about. Same people will screech and yell because they don't want school loans to be forgiven. They don't want college to be paid for by the government. My taxes to pay for that, which it happens in almost every other civilized Western fucking country. Used to happen here in this country back in the day. In fact, I don't care who you are now, how old you are now, your parents or your grandparents, some of your grandparents went to fucking good schools for next to nothing. But now, access to education. So you have access to healthcare, access to choice, access to education is also being limited to people who are from working poor, lower middle class, or poor fucking families. Let's keep those poor people the fuck out of the goddamn system. So, if by chance they work hard enough and they get good enough grades and they apply, and if they're so poor they get some fucking financial aid, that financial aid locks them. It's like a shackle. When they leave school with those massive fucking payments to make for their right to get an education or have access to education, it shackles them for years and years and years. And they know that if they get pissed off about because of how this massive company is treating them, well, the massive company will blacklist them because they fucking leave and they say fuck off. It'll be a black mark. They'll get blacklisted. And of course, the fucking student notes will not fucking, they'll come calling. It'll crush their fucking credit history. It'll crush their fucking credit rating, which of course will also have an effect on their fucking job prospects in the future. It'll ruin their lives. So make your payments, shut up, don't say jack shit until it's done. That's a mechanism for holding certain people of certain classes, keeping them towing the line, so to speak. Well, what is this? How is this any different? Certain people will be able to, at that age, 18, 17, whatever the hell it is, 19, certain people, even in a red state, will be able to go, take a week off, come back, nothing ever happened. I don't care if it's 15 weeks, 16 weeks, 18 weeks, 20 weeks, won't matter. And of course, the big people in the fucking Christian community or the right-wing community or the fucking pro-life community, they won't say a word because they know it happens, has always happened, always will happen, because they don't want it to fuck up their child's life. Well, people who are going to be denied this access to this fucking right and this service, this choice, they won't have that. They'll have to drop out of school, get a fucking job, and raise the fucking kid for the next 18 fucking years to be locked into a goddamn company, into a corporation, and take what they fucking give. Otherwise, they'll be fired. They quit. They get blacklisted. Now they can't get a fucking job because they're blacklisted. The kid's fucking crying. The kid needs medicine. The kid needs fucking food. The kid needs fucking Pampers. Lockdown. We'll let the poor people, we'll let the sons and the children of the poor get a fucking education. Lockdown. You get pregnant, you have, other people, the sorority fucking princess, she can go off and fix that, but, you're there and you're on a fucking scholarship and what, you're pregnant, lockdown. Gotcha. There is a class aspect of this, which must be addressed. And let's face it, that's one of the things that I've been talking about, and quite frankly, the most important aspect of much of what I do is class warfare and how it is being waged on us as we fucking speak right now. And how it's been waged on us, shit, since, let's go back to 1971 if you like, with the Lewis Powell memo. We can do that if you like. That's my opinion on the subject. You can agree or disagree all you want. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to change. But let's be clear. As bad as this is, it isn't a ban on abortions. It's pushing it down to the states, letting the states decide. Of course, that'll make red states and blue states and places that are less restrictive and places that are much more restrictive. It's also about, even in the red states, you'll be able to access abortion in the first 15 weeks. Even in the red states, if you're from a family of means, this means nothing to you at all whatsoever. Because people will find a way, who can find a way, to get certain services. And of course, in the end, this whole leak, I believe, was a distraction from what is also class warfare. All of this money being spent on Ukraine and weapons and all of this shit. Well, we right now are in a situation where food insecurity in this country is at the highest it's been. Even in 2008, in the crash of 2008, food insecurity right now is at the highest it's been in 50 years. So they need to have one of these fucking conferences and sit around and discuss and figure out means by which to fix it. Back in 1969, under Nixon, of all people, they came up with a SNAP program. They came up with food stamps. They found ways to help people put food on the table. According to Biden, now they're talking about we got to figure out ways to keep them from having diabetes and being so fat, because in all honesty, it's the same reason the fucking Michelle Obama was pushing it back when she was in office. She just flat out came right out and said, kids are too fat to join the military. And that was her opinion. Well, we all know the real reason. It's the same reason that they keep pushing the fucking DUI numbers lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And that's because it has an effect on insurance. One of the biggest most costly issues for insurance companies is obesity. They want people smaller and healthier so they have less to pay out. It's not surprising. I should also mention that at the Food Insecurity Summit in September, they're going to wait quite a while, at least until they can get people really ready for that fucking Great Reset thing. The insurance, there will be members of the insurance industry taking part. Why? What does the insurance industry have to do with helping people put food on their goddamn table when you're artificially inflating the goddamn prices to destabilize the country? Nothing. Except, they're not going to be talking about putting food on people's table. We're talking about how do we fucking get people to stop being quite so fat because it costs the insurance companies money. It's all about fucking class. It's always been about class. And even this leak is about class. And certainly this ruling is about class. Because I don't give a fuck what you say. If Judge Alito's granddaughter is 17 years old and she becomes pregnant and she's on her way to fucking Dartmouth, I guarantee you, I will bet everything I own and everything I will ever fucking own, Judge Alito is making a fucking phone call to one of his doctor friends. And that's a fucking fact. Anyway, that's my take on that. I hope you enjoyed it. For those of you who are still here, who haven't fucking unsubscribed, oh my God, here's what it is. You have to do this every now and then to cull the herd, so to speak. I will talk to you guys later. Have a very good Wednesday.